Hi there, I'm Dr. Michael Trayford, and I'm here with Anthony Brenner. Anthony was a patient at our facility in late 2015, and he's here to talk about some follow-up and what's been happening since that time. So welcome, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for seeing you again.
So what we'd like to do, since it's been so long, you had visited us in late December 2015, and we had done a previous video in, I believe it was January of 2016, and I'll post the link for that video with a lot of the underlying details and background story. But for now, Anthony, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what was happening before you came to us in December 2015?
Thank you, Michael. I've started to see some cognitive decline after quite a few concussions due to football injuries. And the previous year before I came to see you, my memory started to become even worse. My cognition was starting to decline. I was not being able to comprehend verbally as well as I had in the past, and started to get a little scared. And so even my wife and my daughter started to recognize that things were a little different with me neurologically. And so we all got concerned, and one thing led to another, and I was led to you, and I'm thankful for that.
Excellent. Thank you. And how many years in total was that you were dealing with these problems?
Well, they started to really decline probably about 8 to 9 months prior to coming to visit you severely. Prior to that, it was poor memory, ADHD history, and short-term, long-term memory loss. But the cognitive delays and having issues with speech recognition and speech comprehension, that's what really drew my interest and got me worried.
All right. Well, we're glad you made it to us for sure. And for the folks that are watching, if you can just, 30 seconds or so, just really talk about the process. Once you got here, how long you spent here, how much time in the office, and how that was for you experiencing that type of intensive work.
Yeah, I was, quite honestly, was a little intimidated prior to joining the program, but once I got into it, I was pleasantly surprised that I was not exhausted beyond belief. I was tired when I left at the end of the day, but typically for the week that I was within the program, I'd come first thing in the morning, and then we'd have a few hours doing some intensive programming, and then have a little bit of a break, and then continue on until early to mid-afternoon. And the third day was the day that I started to feel really, really sharp and could feel a marked difference in the way that my brain was operating, and my focus and my ability to just feel sharp, which I hadn't felt in years. So that was a really good sign for me. And as the week went on, that just intensified. And by the time I left, I could really, really tell a difference in the way that I felt. And I wish that I could say I knew what that felt like, but I had never felt that good and that clear in my life. So it was very promising.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. That's so important for people to understand is the fear that doing too much might actually create more symptoms. But in fact, as we begin to create neurological efficiencies, the brain simply works better, and it is better able to equip the daily things that we do. So you talked about increased clarity, focus, things like that. Your first big breakthrough, what was that? You talked about during the program, but after the program, what was your first big breakthrough?
Well, honestly, I need to back up a second and tell you my real first breakthrough was that third day. Was the first time in probably 4 to 5 years that I did not wake up with a headache.
Wow.
I had had severe headaches virtually every morning for years and years, and nothing would ever really take care of the headache at all. And then on that third day, I woke up and there was no headache. So to me, that was the biggest breakthrough, because I had no more pain,
right.
Which can create so many other underlying issues as well. So
I appreciate you sharing that. That's significant, because oftentimes the pain is separated from the cognitive, the mental, emotional side of things. which can often take longer to to come around and to get better. But yeah, that's one big thing people experience is the reduction in the head pain, which decreasing pain just allows you to think more clearly and do what you need to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you. How about after that? Breakthroughs after once you left the program. It's been 3 years since we've had the opportunity to get together like this. So what's happened since that time?
Gosh, so much to cover. I have to say that my executive functioning I'm a completely different person, and my wife and my family have even verbalized that to other people, that she didn't know that I was listening to her, but when I would hear my wife of 20 plus years say he's a completely different person now, that makes me really feel great. Not only because of my own self-image, which obviously does this when you start to have these declines, but just being able to focus and stay on task and not be so scattered. And it's the typical ADHD brain where you're working on 10 things, you're not doing any of them well, and you don't complete any of them. And so now, the way that my life is different is that I have the ability now to stay focused and to be on task and not jump from one thing to the other, not be impulsive anymore, no more pain. Virtually, my ADHD symptoms are non-existent.
Excellent.
And I really attribute and am super grateful to you and to Apex for beginning this process for me. It allowed me to get even more deep into a meditation practice, which I have daily. I'm a lot more in focus on my nutrition, whereas before I always ate well, but I didn't eat perfectly for my brain. Now I know what my requirements are for my brain, and I stick to that. And if I stick with my meditation practice and I stick with being mindful of my nutrition, my ADHD symptoms, my TBI symptoms are non-existent.
Excellent. And I'm so glad you bring that up, because it is, you hit the nail on the head about us beginning the process. We cannot do the work for people like yourself. So being able to do the work, and athletes are famous for doing the work, and many people are very good at doing the work, but the fact is, if you don't do the work, it's very difficult to get the results. There's no magic wand or silver bullet that many are in search for. So thank you for covering that. That's very important. Very important. So I would imagine the family life being changed because of that, and your interactions with people and socially and otherwise. But I would imagine too, from a productivity standpoint, from your sports to your coaching to your business, et cetera, that as well ramps up.
I'm happy you asked me that question, because it's something that I wanted to touch on for everybody. Is up until the point that I came to see you, my professional life was going downhill. I was unable to stay in a position, in a job that was consistent, that allowed me to perform the way that I needed to perform. And so I was jumping from one job to the next, one career to the next, and not doing any of them well. My family life was completely in shambles, because with the ADHD and the TBI symptoms and everything else in combination, that recipe is not a good recipe to be a good father and to be a good spouse. And so this has salvaged everything. My relationship with my wife is the best it's been in 24 years. What I'm doing as a career right now is really stable. I'm on top of everything, super structured, not forgetting meetings anymore, not late, not forgetting about clients. Everything is just really different. And like you touched on a minute ago, it's because I'm committed now to put the work in. My wife and my children and myself were important enough for me to do the work. And there have been times in the last 3 years where a couple days have gone by, I've gotten away from my meditation, I've eaten poorly, and things start to nosedive. And I can recognize that and have that awareness now. I have the tools to pull myself out and to be able to get back on track. And then if I do that, everything's perfect.
Excellent. Tools and resources. That's what we always talk about prospective patients, existing patients, is, that's really what we provide as tools and resources. And, we can see what happens, and I appreciate you sharing when people can utilize those tools and resources. I'd like to close out. Do you have any advice for anybody that is in your situation? You had a very extensive history of, how many concussions was it in total? Eight, I believe. Very significant concussions, post-concussion syndrome, and everything that comes along with it. And we've done videos on all those various symptoms and why they happen. But what do you, for people that are kind of paralyzed, trying to figure out what to do, make the next move? We've talked about doing the work and all, but what advice do you have for somebody who's stuck at this point?
Gosh, I think the best advice that I could give any one of you that are listening is try your best to remove your ego out of the situation and not feel like you're a victim of the circumstances. I used my ADHD and all of my other symptoms that came along with my concussions as a crutch for so many years that I just told myself subconsciously that these are the circumstances, this is what it is, and that's who I am, and I was defined by it. And I never gave myself enough love to accept the fact that I could be different. Once I pulled myself out of that way of thinking and put the focus on my family, that my wife and my children are important enough to me, I'm important enough to them to put the work in to really be committed. That was the big turning point for me, was once I made that shift in thinking, then that allowed me to be who I am now, which is a completely different father and a spouse. So try your best to remove your own self out of this and do the work for the people that you love, which in turn will make you feel better about yourself. And then also, once you find that meditation and nutrition and some of these other things may be of help to you, stick with it. Don't give up, because as time goes on, it will make a difference and it will sustain a difference, and you will feel so much better about yourself moving forward, and you're able to love a lot better as well.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's amazing the way you put that in. The only thing I think I could add to that is not listening to the naysayers, because there are so many people, including the healthcare professionals, that will blow these types of things off. But you have to go internal first and work through that. So thank you so much for sharing that, Anthony. I appreciate you, and
thank you.
Look forward to hearing more as you go along.